Welcome to the Nebraska Department of Education Nutrition Services training on serving meals to preschool in the school meals programs. My name is Aspen Kosmachek, and I'm a program specialist with NDE Nutrition Services, and will be guiding you through our training today. If you have questions, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. Our contact information will be shown at the end of the presentation. During this training, we will cover commingling considerations, CACFP meal pattern requirements, record-keeping requirements, and wrap up the last part of training with program considerations and resources that you may find helpful when planning preschool meals. Most schools now have their own preschool program, and preschool has its own meal pattern. We are going to discuss how to determine which meal pattern to follow when serving preschoolers. There are two meal pattern options available to follow. The first option is to follow the National School Lunch Program meal pattern. And for this meal pattern, the portions are based on the child's grade, such as K through 5th. The second option is to follow the Child and Adult Care Food Program meal pattern, where portions are based on the child's age, such as ages 1 to 2 and ages 3 to 5. We will cover the meal pattern requirements later in the presentation, but first we must determine which meal pattern is right for your meal service. Which meal pattern to follow depends on where and when the children eat. The School Breakfast Program and National School Lunch Program meal pattern can be followed when preschoolers and students from older grade groups, such as kindergarten through 5th or kindergarten through 12th grade, are all served in the same place at the same time. This is called commingling. The CACFP meal pattern must be followed when preschool meals are served in the classroom or if preschoolers are not commingled with other students in the cafeteria. Before deciding on which meal pattern to follow, you must determine if students are commingled. Students are considered commingled when pre-K and K through 5 students are served meals in the same service area at the same time, and staff cannot differentiate preschool students from the older students, and it would be operationally difficult to serve different foods or amounts of foods during the combined meal service. I have included a helpful resource on serving school meals to preschoolers in the handouts for this training. We encourage you to reach out to us at any time if you have questions regarding commingling and determining which meal pattern to follow. This slide offers some good examples of when students are considered commingled. Example number 1, children may arrive on the same bus and enter the cafeteria for breakfast together. In this situation, it may be difficult for meal service staff to determine which children are in preschool or which children are in kindergarten through 5th grade. The second example, preschool students, kindergarten students, and 1st grade students all come down to lunch at the same time and stand in the lunch line together, again making it difficult for meal service staff to determine which children belong to which grade group. In these situations, commingling provides the flexibility to offer a single menu for all students, and the National School Lunch Program meal pattern would be followed. This slide provides examples of when students would not be considered commingled, including preschool students arriving for meal service 15 minutes prior to other grade groups, or preschool and another grade group both arrive for meal service and teachers stand as dividers between the grade groups, or if preschool eats in their own classroom, whether they walk down to the cafeteria to get their tray or staff delivers the trays to the classroom. Again, these are all examples of students not being commingled, and the CACFP meal pattern must be followed. Schools may also choose to follow the School Breakfast Program or National School Lunch Program meal pattern for one meal service and the CACFP meal pattern for a different meal service. SFAs are highly encouraged to avoid commingling situations and follow the CACFP meal pattern for preschoolers whenever possible. Some of the reasons why include younger children enrolled in preschool programs have different nutritional needs than older children. Schools are encouraged to avoid commingled situations and follow the CACFP meal pattern as it better aligns with the nutrition needs of the preschool students that you serve. The nutrition standards for meals and snacks served in the CACFP are based on the dietary guidelines for Americans. The standards support the service of a greater variety of vegetables and fruits, whole grains, lean meats and meat alternatives, and low-fat and fat-free dairy. The CACFP meal pattern also minimizes added sugar, which we will discuss the sugar limits in greater detail when we cover the meal pattern requirements. The CACFP meal pattern also provides the amounts and types of foods at meals that most younger children need for healthy growth and development. Offering age-appropriate serving sizes will also help in limiting food waste. Staggering meal service times for both the preschoolers and older students allows for closer supervision. This allows staff to better assist preschoolers with food packaging and allows staff to monitor mealtime behaviors that may increase the risk of choking. A separate meal service for preschoolers is encouraged and would also help limit distractions from older children, which may affect the amount the preschooler students eat within the provided mealtime. We will now take a look at the CACFP meal pattern requirements. The CACFP meal pattern chart is included in the handouts for this training. As you can see on the meal pattern chart, the required food components are the same for both the CACFP meal pattern and the National School Lunch Program meal pattern. Fluid milk, fruit or vegetables, or portions of both, and grains are all required components of the breakfast meal. Fluid milk, meat alternates, vegetables, fruits, and grains are all required components that must be served at lunch. You must serve all 3 components at breakfast and all 5 components at lunch for a reimbursable meal. Offer versus serve is not allowed when following the CACFP meal pattern, which we will cover later on in this presentation. The difference between the 2 meal patterns are the serving sizes. If we look at the serving sizes for CACFP, we will notice that they are much more appropriate for the preschool age groups. We will cover each food component and the different serving sizes on the next slides. The first meal component we will cover is milk. Fluid milk must be served as a beverage or on cereal or a combination of both. The minimum daily serving for 2 to 5-year-olds is 6 ounces or 3/4 of a cup of milk for both breakfast and lunch. If pouring milk, you will want to be sure that each child is served at least 3/4 of a cup. It's okay to serve the 8-ounce cartons that are served to older students. Remember, you can always serve more, you just cannot serve less than the daily minimum requirement. In the CACFP meal pattern, children ages 2 to 5 may only be served unflavored, low-fat, or fat-free milk. Preschool cannot have the flavored milks that are available to older students. We have updated our milk substitution form to match the images on current packaging. NDE recommends using a meal accommodation form if serving an approved milk from the fluid milk substitutions list. Milks that are not on the list and are not equivalent to non-dairy substitutes would require a medical statement to be on file. We encourage you to reach out to us at any time if you have questions related to special diets, and we also have a special diets training located on our website that you can access at any time. In both CACFP and the National School Lunch Program, water must be offered and made available throughout the day. Water is not part of a reimbursable meal. Staff cannot ask, do you want water or milk? And water cannot be served in place of milk. Water may be offered alongside milk with the meals or at snack time. And as a reminder, cups must be provided at both breakfast and lunch, whether this is on the serving line or provided at a water station located in your meal service area. The next meal component we are going to cover is the meat alternate component. The meat alternate component is not a required component at breakfast, but it is a required component at lunch. The minimum daily requirement for lunch in the CACFP meal pattern is 1.5 ounces. It's important to note the difference on the serving size for the meat alternate in the CACFP meal requirements versus the National School Lunch Program meal requirements. For the National School Lunch Program, the minimum daily requirement is 1 ounce. We can see that the minimum daily requirement is more for the CACFP than the National School Lunch Program. You will want to be aware of how the items on your menu credit towards the meal pattern to ensure that you are meeting the minimum daily requirements. Let's take a look at an example. Say your planned menu item for the day is a chicken patty on a bun. You know that your chicken patty credits as 2 ounces of a meat alternate, but when it comes time to serve your preschool students, you decide to cut the sandwiches in half. The chicken patty now only credits as 1 ounce of meat alternate and would not meet the daily minimum requirement for the CACFP meal pattern. Again, be sure to review your menu items and how they credit prior to making changes to the serving sizes. This slide offers some good examples of menu items that would credit towards the meat alternate component. There's a wide variety of meat options available to prepare a variety of foods. Nuts and seeds are allowed as a meat alternate and may be used to meet 1/2 of the meat alternate component. They must be combined with other meat alternates to meet the full requirement for a reimbursable lunch. Fresh or frozen animal meat, such as fish, beef, pork, chicken, and turkey, all provide higher yields and more nutritionally dense choices over commercially prepared products. Eggs offer a nice change to the menu and can be served in a variety of ways. Beans and legumes also offer a nice change to the menu and are considered a low-cost option. If planning to serve tofu, this item cannot be homemade or non-commercial. In the school meals programs in the CACFP, 2.2 ounces by weight or 1/4 cup by volume of commercially prepared tofu containing at least 5 grams of protein is creditable as 1 ounce of meat alternate. Yogurt is another great meat alternate option. Yogurt including soy yogurt can be served in the CACFP. Yogurt served must contain no more than 15 grams of sugar per 4-ounce serving, and 4 ounces or a 1/2 cup serving of yogurt credits as 1 ounce of meat alternate. The serving size of soy yogurt is the same for dairy yogurt and must comply with the sugar limit for yogurt. And as a reminder, homemade yogurt is not creditable and cannot be served. The handout shown on this slide is provided in your handout packet for this training. When purchasing yogurt, you will want to pay attention to the serving size and total sugars in order to determine if it can be served to your preschoolers. Use the sugar limits and yogurt table on the handout to help find yogurts that meet the sugar limit requirement when following the CACFP meal pattern. And remember, this rule only applies when you're following the CACFP meal pattern. Let's now take a look at fruits and vegetables. Just like the National School Lunch Program meal pattern, fruits and vegetables are considered separate meal components in the CACFP. Make sure you pay close attention to the minimum serving requirements for both breakfast and lunch as they are different. When following the CACFP meal pattern, the minimum daily requirement for breakfast is a 1/2 cup serving of fruit, vegetable, or portions of both. The minimum daily requirement for lunch is a 1/4 cup serving of fruit and a 1/4 cup serving of vegetable. We notice that the serving sizes are smaller for lunch, however, you are required to serve both a fruit and a vegetable. Where breakfast, you have the option to serve one or the other or portions of both. This slide covers some general reminders on fruits and vegetables. As noted before, fruits and vegetables are separate meal components. Some acceptable forms include fresh, frozen, canned, and dried. When purchasing canned fruits and vegetables, be sure to look for those canned in 100% juice, white syrup, or low sodium. All fruits and vegetables are credited based on their volume, except for leafy greens and dried fruits. 1 cup of leafy greens counts as a ½ cup serving of vegetable, and 1/4 of a cup of dried fruit counts as a ½ cup serving of fruit. If planning to serve juice, it must be pasteurized 100% fruit or vegetable juice and may only be served at 1 meal per day. A vegetable may be used to meet the entire fruit component for lunch only. However, 2 different vegetables must be served. So you cannot serve 2 forms of the same fruit or vegetable, including mashed potatoes and tater tots, or tomatoes and tomato juice. You can find this on footnote 8 of the preschool meal pattern chart. Also, the vegetable subgroup requirement does not apply when following the CACFP meal pattern. Let's now take a look at the grains component. When following the CACFP meal pattern, the minimum daily serving for 3 to 5-year-olds is a ½ ounce at breakfast and a ½ ounce at lunch. This could be a ½ slice of bread, 1/4 of a cup of cereal, or 1/4 of a cup of pasta. Notice that these are much smaller serving sizes compared to the National School Lunch Program meal pattern. At least 1 serving per day must be whole grain rich, and the amount of whole grain determines where the grain credits as whole grain rich. Whole grain rich foods contain 100% whole grains or at least 50% or more whole grain. Always follow the rule of 3 when determining if foods are whole grain rich. You can identify grains that are whole grain by looking at the first 3 grain ingredients that appear on the ingredient list. You will look to see if the first ingredient is whole or second after water, and if so, you will then review the next 2 grains to determine if the grains are whole, enriched, or fortified. I've included an Identifying Whole Grain Rich Foods handout to assist with determining whether the grain items you are serving are whole grain rich. This handout provides great instructions on using the rule of 3. I've also included the grain breads chart used to determine how grains credit towards the meal pattern and the portion sizes needed to credit as a 1 ounce grain serving or 1 ounce equivalent. The grain chart is also reviewed in greater detail in our school meals training. Food service directors are encouraged to have the grains chart printed and accessible in their kitchens. We would also encourage you to have the Identifying Whole Grain Rich Foods handout shown on this slide and included in the training packet available in the kitchen as well. Cereal is a common food item served in the National School Lunch Program and the CACFP. All breakfast cereals served in the CACFP must contain no more than 6 grams of sugar per dry ounce. The handout shown on this slide is provided in your handout packet for this training. There are many types of cereal that meet the sugar requirements. When purchasing cereal, you will want to pay attention to the serving size and the total sugars in order to determine if it can be served to your preschoolers. Be sure to use the sugar limits and cereal table on the handout to help find cereals that meet the sugar limit requirement when following the CACFP meal pattern. And as a reminder, this rule only applies when following the CACFP meal pattern. Grain-based desserts are not creditable in the CACFP and cannot count towards the grain requirement. This includes items such as cookies, cereal bars, donuts, turnovers, sweet rolls or cinnamon rolls, and toaster pastries. This small change helps reduce the amount of added sugars kids eat in childcare. There are some exceptions to the rule. Items such as muffins, quick breads, graham crackers, savory scones, and animal crackers are not considered grain-based desserts and would count towards the grain component. The grain-based desserts in the Child and Adult Care Food Program handout shown on this slide is provided in your handout packet for this training. Please be sure to review the chart on the handout as it provides a full list of grain-based desserts that are not reimbursable in the CACFP and do not count towards the grain component. It also provides a list of the exceptions of the grains that are reimbursable in the CACFP. And remember, whole grain rich and homemade grain-based desserts are also not creditable. This slide briefly covers serving snacks to preschoolers. Snacks served during the school day cannot be claimed for reimbursement. You may need to follow the snack requirement for licensing. However, the snacks cannot be paid for out of the school meals account. The cost would be billed to preschool or paid for out of the general funds account. Money must come back into the program for the cost of those snacks prepared, so it could be treated like a catering program where you are preparing the snacks and then billing to those separate accounts to reimburse the school lunch account for the cost of the snacks. Schools serving snacks must serve the food components and quantities required in the snack meal pattern established for the Child and Adult Care Food Program. Just like the National School Lunch Program, all preschool meals claimed for reimbursement must have a complete menu production record. Production records must include the number of meals planned, and each required food component prepared and served to meet meal pattern must be recorded, along with the total quantity prepared and the weight based on purchase units. We will briefly cover production records as we have made some updates to the form. You will be able to access the updated version on the NDE website. The example shown in our training today is for lunch only. Again, remember that all preschool meals claimed for reimbursement must have a production record. So if you are claiming breakfast and lunch, you will need to have production records for both. You may use the same production record for preschool as you do for the school meals program. This slide shows the top section of the production record where you will need to record your menu and the number of planned meals for preschool. Always double check that your production records are complete. Production records should be filled out at the time the meal is served. This slide shows the bottom section of the production record. This is where you will record your menu items for each meal component. You'll also need to be sure to remember to check if your items meet the whole grain rich requirement. You will need to indicate if your menu items are school recipes, and if so, you will want to make sure you have a standardized recipe on hand, or list the product brand or if it's a commodity. You will also record the total quantity of the food item prepared and the amounts left over. And we have also added a section for you to record how the food items contribute to the meal pattern. The production records are reviewed in greater detail in our school meals training. And again, we encourage you to reach out with questions as production records are reviewed closely during administrative reviews. Label information must also be on file to document compliance. The label information identifies the quantity one serving provides for each food component and details what food components are in the product and how they contribute by weight to meeting the meal pattern. Commercially prepared or combination food items without a CN label or product formulation statement are not creditable. CN labels must be updated annually as formulations and recipes are updated frequently. NDE recommends using a 3-ring binder to keep labels organized and up to date. And when organizing labels, do not throw out old labels. Be sure to keep them with your other records for at least 4 years. During a review, we would want to look at cereal and yogurt labels to ensure you are meeting the sugar limit requirement. We would also check that the milk you are serving is unflavored, low fat, or 1%, And we would review menus and production records to make sure you are identifying whole grain rich items and not offering dessert-like items or those non-creditable grain-based desserts as we discussed earlier. And we would review your grain labels to ensure that you are meeting the whole grain rich requirement and that the grains you are serving are creditable. Again, documentation is key to a successful program. We encourage you to review your CN labels, product formulation statements, and standardized recipes to ensure you are meeting meal pattern and serving creditable items. This slide also shows some examples of what a CN label might look like on a package or what a product formulation statement would look like. Let's wrap up the last part of our training with reviewing some meal service styles allowed in the CACFP. Options of meal service styles include pre-plated, cafeteria-style dining, and family-style dining, which is covered on the next slide. If following the pre-plated service, then the minimum serving size of each component must be placed on the plate and in a cup. If following cafeteria-style dining, then participants move through a serving line and must take the minimum serving size of all meal components. Offer versus serve is only allowed for preschool if students are commingled and following the school meals program requirements. Offer versus serve is not allowed for preschool when utilizing the CACFP meal service. If planning to follow family-style dining, then the dishes of each food component in sufficient quantity must be available for each child to select at least the minimum required portion size. With adult supervision, children seated at tables must be allowed to serve themselves, as this helps children develop independence and self-confidence. A child may decline all foods and/or do not have to take the minimum required serving size as long as each food component is offered more than once, and it would still count as a reimbursable meal. It's important to remember that you must prepare at least the minimum required portions and have plates, cups, and bowls that allow service of the minimum required portion. You will need proper equipment such as small pitchers, serving bowls, and utensils that would be appropriate for preschoolers to serve themselves. There's a family-style dining handout included in your handout packet for this training. It offers some additional information and helpful tips if planning to participate in family-style dining. Please remember to complete and print off your certificate for this training. Keep this certificate with your training log and/or other training certificates as proof of continuing education. That wraps up our Serving Meals to Preschoolers training. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me directly. My contact information is included on this slide, along with a link to our staff directory where you can reach out to other members of the Nutrition Services team. Our Nutrition Services webpage is also included where you can access all of our forms and resources. Again, if you have questions, please reach out to us at any time.